Hello, this is Rory with the Love Chat, and today's topic is stages of a breakup. Now, this is video number 241. If you have a question you'd like for me to consider featuring on the Love Chat, please write it in a comment below. And if you enjoy these videos, I'd be so very grateful if you'd subscribe and hit like. If you'd like coaching on your situation, please visit my website where I'm offering a 15% discount, www.thelovechat.net/coaching. Just enter code TLC2020. Now then, let's talk about the stages of a breakup, also known as the stages of grief. Now, for those of you who usually watch my videos and are still going through the thick of a breakup, you're probably more interested in about how the dumper is feeling, and I have created a video on that, which I will attach below in the description. And while it's important to acknowledge how the dumper is doing, because it's going to help give you some peace, right? Arm yourself with knowledge. It's important to acknowledge how we're doing as well. And so the stages of grief, this is based on the Kubler-Ross model, are something like this. First, we go through shock. Now, shock is the sort of initial paralysis at hearing bad news. We're not sure what to feel. It's that moment where your mouth is sort of just agape, and you're not sure what happens next. What do I do? I don't have words for the situation. That's shock. Shock is pretty normal at hearing maybe somebody you just were talking to 2 days ago had passed away this morning. The first gut reaction, typically, is shock. Now, I should stop and mention that while there are 7 stages of grief based on this model, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go through all of them. That doesn't mean you're going to go through all of them in this order. Some might last a week. Other stages of this might last a day. Everybody's different, and so there's no typical model. So the first stage was shock, and after shock comes denial. Now this one's pretty straightforward. We don't believe it's happening. We might even say, no, they're fine. You're wrong. You must have heard incorrectly. The person's fine. Everything's fine. But since this is a channel related towards relationships and breakups, perhaps denial would sound something a bit more like this. She's gonna come back in a day or two. She's just throwing a tantrum. She'll call any minute and it will be fine. That's denial, trying to avoid the inevitable. So after denial comes anger, which is that outpouring of all that bottled up rage and emotion that you have because this negative thing has happened. Remember that these are the stages of grief, and a breakup is a grief. It is a grief event. It's trauma. Now, perhaps it's a low-level trauma. Maybe you guys only dated for a couple of months and it's sad, but you'll know you'll be okay. Or maybe it's somebody you've been married to for 30 years with kids and a mortgage, and that's an entirely different thing. Breakups can hurt more than people dying. Even though both are grief events, one was not chosen, right? One was taken from you, whereas a breakup was chosen. It was a decision. We could have each other, but I'm choosing not to have you. And because that's the case, we take that far more personally, even if it's not a personal thing. Anger is a transitory emotion, and it has a good purpose. But unfortunately, most of us don't use anger in the way that it should be used. We use it destructively rather than constructively. So an example of this might be using it to go to the gym and hit a punching bag, making sure that you get physically fit, gain some muscle, instead of calling your ex and bitching them out. The real problem with anger is that it is an explosive emotion, and very often because of that, it's impulsive. Sometimes it's hard to control what we do with such emotional caliber, I guess is the best way, or severity is maybe a better word. So after anger comes what I think is the worst stage of grief, which is bargaining. And so bargaining is basically seeking in vain for a way out. Bargaining is really when you're like, please, God, bring them back. If you bring them back, I'll never touch a cigarette again. If you bring them back, I promise I will change every single thing about me. To please them, of course, right? Because that's what we do when we're dumped. Bargaining is when you are trying to do whatever you can and plead with whatever entity that exists to bring back or undo whatever caused this grief. That way, you can, A, not be in the stage of grief, but B, sacrifice something in your day-to-day life or about your personality or character as like a payment for that sacrifice, for that switch of fortune. Now, bargaining is usually the one that keeps people hung up for the longest period of time. It's the one I hear about most often in my coaching, and really it's just a matter of time. How to get past these stages of grief? Let them hit you. Feel them. Don't deny them. Journal about them often. Talk to your counselor. Talk to your friends. get it out by experiencing it rather than denying it. Because when so many people deny their emotions and how they actually feel, well, guess what? It becomes longer. Sort of like in the same way that the longer we don't social distance, the longer we have to practice social distancing. So think about it that way to make it relevant to 2020. Now, after bargaining comes depression. And depression, while obvious to many of you, is the final realization of the inevitable. It has happened. We are in the situation, and there's probably not much I can do to get out of it. I just need to focus on me and take care of me. But in the meantime, I'm feeling very down, very depressed. Because remember that depression doesn't necessarily mean sad. Depressed, when you depress something, you push it down, you blunt it. So it's sort of like I feel less range of emotions, and the emotions that I do feel tend to be a bit more negative. But sadness and depression are not synonymous. Sadness can come with depression, but is not necessarily depression itself. So after depression comes an upturn, and it's a noticeable upturn because you begin testing. And testing is seeking realistic solutions. This is when you begin to think, hey, maybe there is a way forward. Maybe I can get past this. I still want them back, but maybe life won't be horrible if I don't get them back. Maybe I should just focus on myself a bit more and just let life happen. Maybe me trying to change how they feel through social media posts and Instagram and whatever else I might be doing for their benefit, maybe that's been the very thing keeping me where I am this whole time. And maybe if I begin to take steps forward and live my life and plan trips and hang out with friends and learn new skills and go to the gym and talk to my counselor, maybe things will be okay. And then you begin testing these theories. And then you begin doing them. And then you begin feeling better because of them, which leads us to the final stage of grief, which is acceptance. You accepted it. It happened. It's okay that it happened. And you're finding the way forward. Acceptance is a beautiful thing because you look back at the situation and maybe you're not happy that the situation happened, but it's no longer able to destroy you or your day. And you can actually have meaning in your life again, and things feel normal. Maybe you've sacrificed your old comfort zone and created a new one, and maybe the new one fits better. So while I did very briefly cover what to do about the stages of grief, I'm just going to highlight it again here. The most important thing you can do is feel how you feel. Don't judge yourself for how you feel. Don't judge yourself for how long you feel it. Just let it hit you and keep moving forward. Human beings are an extremely adaptable species. We can walk and chew gum. I can feel sad and still go to the gym, right? I can feel depression and still journal. So what's important is to feel your feelings, but don't let your feelings own you 24/7. You need to get up and move forward despite how you feel about getting up and moving forward. Because guess what? One day, you won't feel that way. It's kind of nice to know that ultimately there's an expiration date on your negativity. There's an expiration date on the grief. You just need to work on yourself, stay consistent, and give it time. That's all I had for today. If you found my video helpful, I'd be very grateful if you'd subscribe and hit like. Please leave a comment below and tell me what topics you want me to cover in the future. Additionally, if you'd like extra videos every week, private live streams with me, and free giveaways of my best-selling book on Amazon, just visit my Patreon, patreon.com/thelovechat. Until next time.